The Cold War, USA versus USSR, 40 years that changed the world. Episode 4. The Korean War, the first Cold War battlefield. 1950s world map showing Korea between China, the Soviet Union, and Japan. After World War II, the world hoped for peace. But on a small peninsula in East Asia, the fragile balance between East and West would erupt into open war. This was the Korean War, the first battlefield of the Cold War, a conflict that never truly ended and still divides a nation today. Join us as we uncover 5 defining chapters in the Cold War. 1. A nation divided. For centuries, Korea had been a united country. But when Japan surrendered in 1945, its former colony was split in two, the Soviet Union occupying the north and the United States taking control of the south. The division was meant to be temporary. Instead, it became permanent, a symbolic line between communism and capitalism. In 1948, 2 rival governments were declared, the Communist North under Kim Il-sung and the anti-communist South under Syngman Rhee. Both claimed to be the rightful government of all Korea. War was only a matter of time, too. The war begins on June 25, 1950. North Korean forces cross the 38th parallel in a massive surprise attack. Backed by Soviet weapons and training, they swept through the south in weeks, capturing Seoul and pushing US and South Korean troops to the edge of defeat. The United Nations, led by the United States, rushed to defend South Korea. 16 nations sent troops, the first international military coalition of the Cold War. 3. The tide turns. In September 1950, General Douglas MacArthur launched a daring amphibious assault at Inchon. The operation turned the tide of war. Seoul was recaptured, and UN forces pushed deep into North Korea, nearing the Chinese border. But victory was short-lived. China entered the war with hundreds of thousands of troops. The UN forces were driven back in one of the harshest winters on record. The front lines froze again near the 38th parallel, right where it all began. 4. Stalemate and ceasefire. For 2 years, the war dragged on in brutal stalemate. Villages were destroyed, millions of civilians displaced, and entire cities reduced to rubble. Peace talks began in 1951, but moved slowly as both sides refused to compromise. Finally, in July 1953, an armistice was signed. The fighting stopped, but no peace treaty was ever signed. To this day, North and South Korea remain technically at war. 5. The cost and legacy. The Korean War left more than 3 million people dead, soldiers and civilians alike. It was the first armed clash of the Cold War, proving that the US and the Soviet Union could fight each other indirectly through proxy wars and divided nations. Decades later, the scars of that war still shape global politics. The Korean Peninsula remains one of the most heavily fortified places on Earth, a living reminder of the Cold War's first battlefield. The Korean War showed the world that the Cold War could turn hot, and that even small nations could become the center of global power struggles. In the next episode, the superpowers take their rivalry beyond Earth as the space race begins. Subscribe for Episode 5, The Space Race, When Science Became a Weapon. The Cold War series USA versus USSR, 40 years that changed the world.